The calories in, calories out diet is getting a lot of attention right now, and you might have heard about it yourself. But is this type of diet really a good idea? That's what we're going to talk about today. So calories in, calories out, which is sometimes abbreviated CICO, is a style of dieting that really isn't new, but for some reason, it's really getting a lot of eyeballs on it at this time. And I'm not sure what has made it kind of come to the top and gotten people interested in it again, but since it is something that people are talking about more, I thought this would be a great time for us to talk about it. And this particular style of dieting, I think, is going to be interesting to talk about compared to some of the other diets that we talked about, because I actually have experience with this one. I've done it myself. And so sometimes when we talk about diets, I haven't tried every diet, nor do I feel a desire to try every diet, but this is one that I did use back when I used to do diets. So I have my professional expertise as a registered dietitian, but I also have my personal experience to go along with this one too. Now, just a little disclaimer here before we get into this whole thing. I am going to be talking about counting calories here and dieting, all that sort of stuff. That is the topic of this video, and we're gonna go over it a lot. So if you are in a place right now with your relationship with food, if you are dealing with disordered eating or an eating disorder and calorie counting, and that talking about this type of stuff is not gonna put you in a good place or isn't gonna be helpful for you right now, then, skip this one, go watch one of my other videos, come back for another video in the future. All of that stuff is great, but maybe this is one that you wanna skip out on. So calories in, calories out is a weight loss diet. And the basic idea is that if you eat fewer calories than your body uses throughout the day, then your body will have to go into stored energy, your fat, to get the extra energy it needs. And by doing that, you'll lose weight. Now, this is the sort of thing that makes sense when you just hear it, but in actuality, it doesn't really pan out this way. And there are a lot of problems with this type of dieting, so I wanted to go through them with you. So the first problem with calories in, calories out is that it doesn't really take nutrition into account. It just looks at the calories that are in any given food. But we know that food is much more than the calories that it provides. Food is also a source of nutrients that our body needs, and you need to eat a variety of foods to get those nutrients. But if you're just focused on calories, then you're not really taking that into consideration. This type of dieting can lead people to not get a variety of foods because they are just focused on the calories, and so they don't really care about the nutrition side of things, or simply because it's practical to eat the same thing all the time when you're trying to count calories. I mean, I know in the past for me, when I was counting calories, it did limit the variety of foods that I ate because it was way easier to make the same meals over and over and not have to, calculate everything from scratch every single time. So to make it convenient and make it to fit a little bit better into my life, my meals were basically the same thing every single day. And even if you are eating a wide variety of foods while you're counting calories, you're still restricting the amount of food that you eat overall, which means that you can also be limiting your access to nutrients. Also, if you're counting calories, you might find yourself avoiding foods that are really nutritious, but just happen to be high in calories, like avocados, nuts, and seeds. These foods are delicious, of course, but they're also really good for us, and these are the types of foods that someone might steer away from if they're counting calories. Another problem with calories in, calories out is that it can make you dislike low-calorie foods, and it can put higher calorie foods on a pedestal. So a lot of times when people do lower calorie diets, which is what this is, it's just counting your calories and trying to get it under a certain number, then they find themselves eating a lot of very low-calorie foods, oftentimes vegetables. And what can happen if you do this over time, or if you have a history of dieting, is that people will start to actually resent vegetables, to not enjoy them, to see them as kind of like a punishment or a thing that they have to do because they're eating them all the time, even when they don't really want them, simply because they're low calorie. And on the flip side, higher calorie foods that maybe are difficult to fit into the calorie count, and so they're not really getting very much of on the diet, it can put those foods in a position where they're like the forbidden food or the treasured food that the person can't stop thinking about. And so it creates a situation where you can't enjoy foods equally. You can't just enjoy them for what they are. And people can end up in a situation where they don't like vegetables anymore. They don't want to have anything to do with them. And so that means that their diet becomes unbalanced if they, stop forcing themselves to eat these things that now they hate. So doing this type of dieting can really make you dislike perfectly tasty and healthy foods because your perception of them gets skewed in your mind thanks to the diet. Another problem with calories in, calories out is that it can encourage you to ignore your hunger and fullness cues. And this is something that I experienced personally when I did calorie counting diets. So what can happen here is you find yourself maybe at the end of the day and you're full, you're satisfied, you don't really feel like you need any more food, but you have a certain number of calories left over, okay? And so that's, in whatever calorie count you've assigned yourself or some program has assigned you, you have these calories left and you feel like, oh, I need to use them. Even though my body is telling me that I'm not hungry for food right now, like these are here, and so I need to use them or I'm gonna lose them. And then on the flip side, you could find yourself in a situation where you are, at the end of the day, you've used up the calories that were allowed on this diet, but you're still hungry. And so instead of just eating because your body is telling you that it needs more food, you are trying to ignore that hunger and push it down. Or you end up eating very low calorie foods like raw vegetables like we talked about earlier because, well, those are allowed and you can eat those when you're hungry but you don't have any calories left, and that feeds into that resentment thing. Overall, it's disconnecting you from your body's own signals. Your body is great at telling you when you need more food and when you don't. It's through hunger and fullness. But as you ignore those things, you can break that down and get to a point where you can't really listen to those anymore. They're not as strong, or you don't know how to hear them or how to pay attention to them. And then for a lot of people, they have to do a lot of work at getting back in tune with those hunger and fullness cues after an extended time of dieting and doing this type of calorie restricted diet plan. And this goes into another issue with calories in, calories out. It's based on this idea that our body is static when it comes to how it uses energy, but really it's not. It's dynamic. So what I mean by that is when people talk about calories in, calories out, there's this idea that our bodies are almost like a machine, and like your body needs this much energy and that's something that we can just calculate, and then if you want to lose weight you should eat this much less than that, and it's very formulaic and treats it like our body is the same all the time, and almost like it's like a counter every day. Like we put in energy and we use energy, and at the end of the day we want to see what the counter says and if these things line up or if one number is higher than the other. But really our body doesn't work like that at all. The amount of calories that our body uses throughout the day, it varies from person to person, and it can also vary from day to day depending on what you're doing, but also depending on the adjustments that your body is making. What a lot of people don't realize is that your body can start conserving energy or being a little more free with the energy that it uses by adjusting, the different chemical reactions that are going on in your body, how it's prioritizing energy and what it's doing. And if you are under eating consistently, then what can happen is your body starts to turn things way down. It's like, we're not getting the amount of food that we need, so we need to conserve every last bit of energy that we have. And so what happens is you're actually, pushing your body to burn less energy and become really stingy with the energy that it uses. And this is why a lot of times people have a lot of success on their first diet. The first time they ever try to restrict their food, maybe through calorie counting like this diet, what happens is they lose a lot of weight because it's kind of the first time they've ever done this, but as the diet goes on, their body starts fighting back. And maybe as they diet again and again and again over the course of their life, it's less and less effective because every time their body is fighting back more and more and more against the diet by adjusting things. And in addition to the fact that you can't really know exactly how many calories your body needs each day, you also can't really know how many calories are in your food. I think people don't realize that all of those calorie count numbers are just estimates and they're averages and things are rounded. It's not this super exact thing. And this is something that I didn't really consider when I was counting calories. I mean, I would count things that were very small in calories and be like down to the calorie time, trying to calculate things and weighing things and multiplying things and doing all this stuff. And really, it's not that exact. The good news with all this is that we don't really need to know how much energy our body is burning or how much energy we're putting in, because our body is really great at knowing that and taking care of that. Our body is working all the time to make adjustments to keep us in a healthy place and to keep us in homeostasis. It wants to keep us in that stable place where we need to be. So if your body, doesn't get enough energy one day, you're probably gonna be hungrier the next day. Or if you get a little bit more energy than you needed one day, that's gonna get stored. Maybe the next day you're not as hungry. And your body's always making these little tweaks and these little adjustments. And over time, if you're listening to your body and what it is saying, listening to your hunger and fullness and getting a variety of foods, your body can take care of the rest, and there isn't this need for us to micromanage everything we're eating. Another problem with calorie counting is that it can set you up for a binge. And this is a concept I've talked about in a lot of videos when talking about diets, but I'll talk about it again here because I feel like we can't talk about this too much. It's super important, so listen up. When it comes to restricting your food, in this case, we're talking about restricting the amount of food, but this also applies to restricting the types of foods that you eat. When you restrict, your body starts pushing back biologically and psychologically. Your body starts increasing your hunger and decreasing your fullness, so you will go and eat. Your body starts increasing your cravings for certain foods, so you will go and eat. Your body increases the amount of food that it takes for you to feel full, so that when you do go and eat, you'll eat more food. And it also makes food taste better, so that when you do go and eat, you will eat more food. And so what happens? You restrict and restrict and restrict, and your body is pushing back and pushing back until eventually you break the diet and you go ahead and eat. You eat all the foods that the diet said you couldn't have. You eat the amounts that the diet said you couldn't have. So in the case of calorie counting, you eat a lot of food and you end up in this place where you end up binging. You feel out of control. You're eating and eating and eating and you feel like you can't stop. And then at the end, you're like, oh my goodness, what happened? Like, what? And so what it confirms in your mind is that, oh, I need this diet. I need this calorie count to tell me how much to eat, because when I don't listen to that, I am just out of control and I eat all this food. Look what happened. I can't do this. I need these boundaries, this calorie count to keep me in line. But the truth is, the restriction is what caused the binge in the first place. So going back to the restriction is just perpetuating the cycle, and it just goes on and on and on and on. So what we need to do instead is break the cycle. Don't go and restrict, but give yourself freedom to have foods. And then what happens eventually is you find that, you can manage this stuff. You can listen to your body again because your body isn't fighting back all the time against the diet. In this case, calorie counting. Another problem with calorie counting that I think gets overlooked a lot of times is just like any other diet, it can trigger an eating disorder. For a lot of people who have eating disorders, the thing that got them into it, that got the ball rolling, was going on a diet. It was like the first little toe, dipping in, and then the whole thing just started going from there, and then they find themselves in this position where they are dealing with an eating disorder. And I know everyone thinks, oh, that won't happen to me, but it can happen to you, and it happens to a lot of people, and that is not a place where you want to find yourself. So don't start the diet in the first place, because that really is where it could end up. Something else that makes calories in, calories out not a great idea is that it can link physical activity and eating in your mind. And really, this is something that a lot of people I don't even think realize is a problem, because it's something that everyone does. Even people who aren't on diets, it's so much a part of the culture to link physical activity and eating. People do it everywhere all the time, no matter what their dieting history is. But this really isn't a normal thing to do, and it's not healthy, even though it seems like it is, because everyone else is doing it. And I have a whole video on this topic, so I'll link it for you if you want to dive more into this specifically. But quickly, linking diet with exercise is an issue because, again, that's not how our body works. It's not like this scale or this like counter that's moving around, and it can create a situation where you're not doing exercise or physical activity because you love it or because it makes your body feel good or anything like that. It becomes a punishment, and that makes it harder to do exercise consistently because it doesn't feel like something you want to do. It feels like something that you have to do to pay for the thing that you just ate, or to pay in advance for the thing that you want to eat later. Another problem with calories in, calories out is that calorie counting is a huge pain, and it isn't normal. I mean, when you're counting calories, you have to weigh and measure every single thing that you're eating, and then either look it up in an app or write it down in a journal, and you're always doing this math at your meals, trying to figure out what you can have of this and that and the other to make it fit, and looking at your day ahead and all of this stuff, and you have to look up every single food, every single little thing, and put it in to calculate what the calorie count is. And some people are like, well, if you do calorie counting long enough, you just start to memorize these numbers, and then, you don't have to look up stuff all the time because you just know it. And that's something I experienced when I counted calories too. But that's not a good thing. That's actually really disordered, but people don't realize it because it's considered acceptable and even encouraged a lot of times in our culture. But knowing the calorie counts of every single little thing and being able to add it up, that's really a disordered eating symptom, and it's not something that we want to strive for. And it's also not something that we need to do because, like I said before, our bodies take care of that for us. Plus, counting calories can get in the way of healthy and enjoyable activities, like cooking, for example. Cooking becomes a whole nother ball game when you're trying to count calories, because either you feel like you have to use recipes that have calorie counts with them so you can know everything that's in them. This is something that I did for a long time. I would not buy a cookbook if it didn't have calorie counts with the recipe, because I was like, how am I going to know what's in it? I will know, and then that's a problem. Then something else you might do is use recipes or just your home cooking, on the fly type of thing, but you feel like you have to calculate every little thing in there. This is something I also did. Adding up everything that's in a certain dish and then dividing it out by the amount of portions so you know how much is in each portion, and then, taking and doing that to try to estimate what's going on in there and only allowing yourself to have however much of a portion of what you estimate, all that kind of thing. It makes cooking not fun when you're doing all of that stuff, and so it discourages you doing something that can be fun to do and also good for you, because you get to try all these different foods and you get to experiment and incorporate new vegetables maybe that you've never had before or whatever. It gets in the way of all of that when you're trying to calorie count, and it can push you to really limiting the types of foods that you eat because you can't just cook freely. It can also get in the way of social outings, which are also important for your health and well-being and are a fun thing to do, because instead of going there being able to just hang out, eat the food, and have a good time, you're like thinking all the time about what's in the food or whether you can eat it or not, or trying to do this mental math of calculating everything, or you feel like you can't eat the food there because you don't know what's in it, so then you have to eat beforehand your approved foods or whatever you can calculate to fit within, the calorie limits of what you've set for yourself, or you'll have to eat after, all of this kind of stuff. It just creates all this stress around stuff that should be fun and enjoyable. And social interactions and relationships are really important for your overall health and well-being. Now you might be thinking, but Sarah, I want to lose weight because I need to do it to be healthier, and I'm worried about my health, and that's why I'm doing this whole thing. Well, the truth is that weight and health aren't the same thing. We talk about them a lot of the times like they are. People say, well, you need to lose weight because at this weight you're not healthy, or we assume that based on the way someone looks, that tells us what their health behaviors are, but really that's not the case. There are plenty of people who don't take very good care of themselves, don't eat well, don't move their bodies, don't get good sleep, manage their stress, all that kind of stuff, and they're smaller, they're skinny. And then there are people who do all those things, take great care of themselves, and they're larger, because we come in a variety of shapes and sizes. There's not one shape or size or weight that everyone needs to be. And when we focus on weight, we start focusing on this thing that really we can't directly affect. What we really need to be focusing on when it comes to health is the things that we are doing. Plus, when it comes with the whole weight health thing, you can't ignore all of the negative effects that I just went through, for your physical health and your mental health when it comes to calorie counting or any form of dieting, really. Those are real effects, and they're not good for you. So this idea that weight loss is good, end of story, we really have to look at the big picture here and realize that weight and health aren't the same thing, and actually trying to actively lose weight can do a lot of things to negatively impact your health. Then again, maybe you don't care about health. Maybe you just want to do calories in, calories out to change the way that you look, and you don't care what it does to your health or anything like that. It's just about appearance. Well, to you, I say it's still not going to work out, because here's the thing. With calorie counting, just like any type of diet, you might lose weight, okay? There are lots of people who I'm sure will comment on this video and say, well, I've done calorie counting and I lost X amount of pounds in X amount of time and it's great. But what I want to propose to you is, how long does that last? Where will you be in 5 years? The truth is, for the vast majority of people who go on any diet, including calories in, calories out, the weight comes back, okay? And for a lot of those people, they end up actually gaining back more weight than they lost initially. So even if you're just concerned about appearance, or you think weight and health are the same thing and the most important thing is to change your weight, dieting isn't great for that. In fact, dieting is a great way to gain weight for a lot of people. Now, you might be feeling discouraged and you're like, well, what if I want to lose weight? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do instead if I'm trying to be healthy? A lot of people find this information defeating or discouraging or say it's not motivational or something like that. Well, the truth is we need to change the way we think about this stuff. And it's not always easy because you can change the way you think about it, but you can't change the way other people think about it or perceive you necessarily. And that can be scary and hard, especially when we get all these messages that we need to lose weight and that being thin is the most important thing and all this kind of stuff. But what I want to tell you is that this doesn't have to be something to discourage you. It's actually something that can give you a lot of freedom, because instead of just focusing on this number and trying to manipulate your body and the way it looks, you can start focusing on things that actually impact your health if that's something that you care about. You can focus on eating a variety of foods and listening to your body and what it's telling you about the amount of food that you need, and moving your body in a way that you enjoy and that makes you feel good, and getting the sleep that your body needs, and managing your stress and nurturing your relationships with other people, instead of focusing on the scale and letting that determine if you're having a good day or a bad day. Instead, you can focus on the choices that you make and really taking care of yourself, and I think that's a great place to be. And let me know in the comments, do you have any other thoughts on calories in, calories out, or any questions? Because I feel like this is the sort of thing that we could talk about again and again and again and again. There's just so much to discuss here. And don't forget, if you're watching this video the day it goes up or maybe the day after, this Thursday is the first Thursday of the month, and the first Thursday of every single month I do a live cook with me on my channel. And if you haven't made it to one of those yet, definitely try to come out. It's a lot of fun. Basically what it is I make dinner live on video and I show you what I'm doing. I give you cooking tips. I also get to chat with y'all in the comments, answer a lot of your questions. It's so much fun. It really is just one of my favorite things to do. So I really hope you can make it. That's going to be at 5 p.m. Eastern. So put it on your calendar and make sure that you're there. And if you happen to be new here and you want more healthy eating tips and nutrition info and videos like this one, then make sure that you subscribe, because eating healthy and living a healthy lifestyle really doesn't have to be complicated, and I'm going to show you how to do it. And if you want to watch some more videos, I have a couple linked over here that you might like. Thanks for watching. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll talk to you next time.